Yeah, sorry we haven't posted many videos for the last few weeks, but if you can have a look at the Moke, it's pretty well, it is finished and it's registered, and it's quite amazing how quickly we got it done, because we got a fully reconditioned, we got a guy that we found that fully reconditioned the engine for us, and we got that back 2 months ago, just after we painted the body, and we have completely finished the Moke and got it registered in 2 months, and we've wired the whole thing ourselves, no wiring harnesses. It might be a bit rough, but it works. So I just tell you about a few things. This will give you a good idea of a lot of tips of restoring a Moke that will save you some money and time, because we've obviously made a lot of mistakes and we've ended up fixing it. So one of the problems, when we did it for the first test run, the brakes worked beautifully. We've got a power booster and we've got the front disc brake kit, so that came, and that works really good. But the only real major problem we had when we first started to run it was the clutch. It was it seemed like it was hard to get into gear once we've been running it for a while. So anyway, we had the old original clutch master cylinder. We replaced that. We got a brand new brake master cylinder, brand new clutch master cylinder, brand new clutch slave cylinder, and the power booster, and all that seems to be fine now. Now I'll give you a few tips on the wiring, because we've worked out a lot of interesting things with the wiring. So we've put in our own fuse box. We've got a 12 fuse box, and probably the hardest things to do with the wiring is the ignition switch, and we didn't want the fuel pump. We wanted a safety mechanism, so we put in a relay for the fuel pump that runs off this oil pressure switch. So we've got this 3-way brass fitting we bought off Repco, and that's the oil pressure gauge on the end, and an oil pressure switch with this special relay. So the fuel pump only goes once the engine's running, and it stops when the engine stops, because it works on the oil pressure. Now the alternator was a bit tricky to wire too. We had a bit of a problem with that, because you've got to excite the wire, the alternator with 12 volts, and that's what that blue wire is. This is the big red wire is feeding the 12 volts out to the battery. We had to feed 12 volts in there, and when we first did that, couldn't turn the engine off. So I realised that. So when I looked it up, you need a diode in that. So that stops the current going back the other way, and then you know, the engine turns off. But I actually put it through a relay, which is sort of a similar thing. So that was really in now. One really good tip with wiring is Copilot. We've used AI, Microsoft Copilot, heaps of times on this, and it's come up with some really good stuff when it comes to the wiring, you know, and when you come to problems. But you know, the wiring was relatively tricky, but got a lot of relays, had to put a lot of relays in for the headlights and the horn, but in the end it was probably easier than I thought it was going to be. So now one thing that we could show you here is this kill switch isolator. I bought this from Repco, and you can take that out when you're working on it, then you've got no 12 volts to spark yourself when you're working on the engine. Plus that's also a good safety mechanism. You can take that away as well, and a bit of an anti-theft device. So that just isolates the battery from all of the rest of the wiring. We got a little press button here for the water pump. That all works. We got the wipers, and we got a nice new gauge layout there. So we ended up with buying all SAAS instruments. Now the speedo is a GPS speedo. There's the aerial there, and that was relatively easy to program, but we had a bit of a problem with the tacho. So I'll just show you this one here. That's a bit of a tip with the taco. So this is the green taco wire, and then it comes off the negative of the coil to get its signal. But the problem was it wasn't working properly. It was just going mental. And I rang up SWAS and found that if you put a capacitor in that line, so you just run the capacitor to the body, you run the taco wire to the body of the capacitor, and then the wire out of the capacitor to the negative of the coil, and apparently that cleans up the signal, and now it works perfectly. The taco works perfectly, and that capacitor only costs $14 from Repco, because you can spend $150 on a special device to fix it, but that's a good tip, just getting that capacitor from Repco. Now I got an engineer had to get to certify the back seat to get a mod plate here. So there's a mod plate, he just stuck that on. So that mod plate certifying, we got the back seat is all fully approved, and that back seat I bought off Minisport. Now that's another interesting thing. We actually had a frame, and I got a quote off an upholsterer to reupholster it. He said about $700 or $800, and we bought this brand new one from Minisport for $600. So he had to certify that, and as well as the seat belts, you can only fit lap seat belts in the back, but in the front, if you've got a roll bar like ours, we already had this roll bar as part of the old Moke. You can fit lap sash seat belts with retractors, so that's all pretty good. We put the aluminium checker plate on the sides because we figure that paint's just going to wear out, jumping in and out all the time. Got a nice little stereo system. Works with Bluetooth, connect to the phone. That's pretty cheap. We sort of had to put that in straight away because we had great big holes. There was great big holes here for speakers with the old Moke. Now, what else? The wiper motor, that's the one issue we haven't solved. The wiper motor is very tricky. It works high and low speed, but we can't get them to park. So we've disconnected the fuse here, and that's just all for looks good. We're not going to go for a drive when it's raining anyway for the time being. There we go around this tow bar was already on it. Painted that up with some nice white paint, like our personalised plates, and just got the one big bolt holding this on because it actually sits nicely on the tow bar. Now you have a look at the mud flaps. They're just basic generic mud flaps from Super Cheap Auto, and I've got a friend that has got a 3D printer, and he printed that out of plastic. So yeah, that was a bit of a saving because they're quite expensive. A good tip with buying stuff is Repco. So we bought a lot more stuff on Repco than Super Cheap Auto or the others because we found out that if you're an RACQ member, you get a big discount. And like for instance, I bought all the seat belts off Repco for way cheaper than buying them off Minisport. So you want to check that out. I bought the steering wheel off SWAS Direct. And I managed to get a package deal of the instruments, SWAS instruments, off an eBay seller. So that was actually cheaper than buying them off SWAS. One little last thing here, so they weren't very good. They were very poorly made and didn't fit well. The ones I bought off the mirror holders, so I had to fabricate these. They're pretty straightforward, just a bit of flat strap steel and a welded bolt on the end, but does the job. And what else is there? I think that's pretty much it. The handbrake works all right. We've got to tidy all this up, but they're actually these wires and buttoners what you can program the tacho and the speedo with. So once we finalise that, we'll tuck all those away. Now this is a very useful thing, but it's quite expensive. So that's $395 from Mini Sport. But this is the KAD Quick Shift, and it's way better than the old sloppy gear stick, and it goes into gear pretty well, as you got that lift mechanism to whack it into reverse, and that works really well. So I don't know, I recommend that's probably worth getting that, even though it's quite expensive. So that's about it, and I hope you enjoyed all our shows, but we'll be fine tuning it a little bit more, and we'll be continuing with a few